Leicester City won the Premier League in 2016, but just 7 years later have been relegated. How have Leicester fallen so quickly, especially as they were in the Europa League in the 21-22 season? So today we are going to fix Leicester, and the chairman has given me 3 challenges that we need to complete. First, we need to get back promoted to the Premier League. Second, we need to re-establish the club as a solid Premier League side before finally winning another Premier League title. A piece of cake, really. The first issue we faced were players leaving at the end of their contracts. True to real life, we let players like Tielemans, Perez and Soyuncu go, but offered a new contract to Johnny Evans. This then gave me a squad to work with. I went for a 4-1-3-2 to play to the team's strengths and the fact we only had one great winger in Harvey Barnes. The next issue was going to be keeping hold of all of these players, as I'm sure the likes of James Maddison and Wout Faes will draw attention. The board gave me just under 22 million to spend, but we could add more to it by offloading some dead wood. All of these players who still have contracts for next season would be made available. And Yannick Vestergaard, Mark Albrighton and Hamza Chowdhury were all sold, but for below market value, just to get them off the books. As we planned to play with 3 centre mids, it was a priority to bring in more. So our first signing was Bristol City's Alex Scott for 13.5 million. With huge potential, I'm expecting a lot from him. I then strengthened our goalkeeping options by signing Elia Caprier for 5.75 million from Bari. Again, another young player with a whole load of potential. But that used up a big chunk of our budget, so we had to be sensible. We signed Mohamed El Neni on a free transfer after he left Arsenal, as well as Benoit Badiashile on loan from Chelsea, and Brian Brobby on loan from Ajax to add more depth to our attack. Importantly though, despite there being interest in James Maddison and Wout Faes, no official bids ever came in, so I wasn't going to try and sell them. I thought we could keep them to get us back promoted. And with all of those new additions, we were ready to start the season. Right, we could do with a fantastic win here to start the season off, and Kelechi Iheanacho gives the ball to Scott, gets it back, and opens up the scoring inside of 4 minutes. Come on! Scott on the ball once again, being the centre of the attacking play there as the ball's played out to Pereira, gets back to Scott, and Scott scores on his debut. You love to see it. Birmingham with an attack here with 67 minutes on the clock. Deeney finds Djukovic in the middle and they've pulled one back. Maddison's free kick, he's so good at these, isn't he? To the far post, it comes off Faes, and I think it comes off Gardner in the end. It's an own goal, 3-1, not long left to go. As Patson Daka now turns his man, gets tackled, but it only goes as far as James Justin, who finds Alex Scott. Alex Scott with a second goal on his debut. A wonderful start to the season continued as we beat Swansea and Coventry with clean sheets to go top of the table. Marquee signing Alex Scott was playing well, contributing with plenty of assists and goals, but it was 2 retained players who were the real stars. Patson Daka had turned into prime Pele as he bagged goals for fun, picking up his first hat-trick of the season in a 5-0 win over Huddersfield. And it was Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall who was feeding Daka, and he was well on his way to a championship assist record, as everything the Magic Duo touched turned to gold. By January 1st, Daka had 24 goals, and Dewsbury-Hall had 15 assists as we sat top of the table by 10 points. More importantly though, offloading players in the summer on high wages meant we had a fat bank balance, so the board upped our transfer budget to 33 million for January. But it wasn't all plain sailing. We'd kept hold of James Maddison in the summer, but his contract was expiring in 6 months' time, and he didn't want to sign a new one, so we had to sell him now or lose him on a free. It may have been a cut price deal, but 15 million is better than nothing. We also raised another 3.4 million by selling Harry Suter to Spartak Moscow, but at least that now meant we had around 50 million to spend. To fill the James Maddison hole, I brought in Arsene Zakarian for 9.5 million from Dynamo Moscow, who went on to score a brace on his debut for an instant impact. I also wanted another wonder kid to help our backline, so for 13.5 million, I bought Ivan Fresneda to replace the aging Pereira at right back. But the biggest transfer was yet to come. Kelechi Iheanacho's contract is expiring at the end of the season, and so far he has not been at the level Patson Daka has been at. Plus, our backup Brian Brobby would be heading back to Ajax at the end of the season, so I wanted to replace them both now. Leeds were a big promotion rival, and if we could weaken them, that would be ideal. So we agreed a transfer fee of 26.5 million for wonder kid Wilfred Gnonto. I expect this man to be our leading striker for the rest of this rebuild. And boy did he hit the ground running. scoring on his debut before netting 2 more the following game. But as we were 10 points clear in January, the rest of the season was in cruise control. We may have lost 7-1 to Norwich at one point, but we kept momentum going towards the end of the season to finish as champions ahead of Leeds United. If we hadn't signed Nonso, who scored 11 in 17 for us, Leeds may have beaten us to the title. But Challenge 1 was completed as we got back to the Premier League and we developed a solid core of a team. Daka and Nonso were the star strikers, Alex Scott was scoring and assisting, ending the season with 13 goals and 14 assists, Dewsbury Hall broke the championship record with 29 assists, and Capria kept 16 clean sheets in the league to be named as the signing of the season. But would this be good enough for the Premier League? The board backed me by giving us 50 million to spend, and we would need to spend all of it in order to build a Premier League team with depth. We started off by raising funds, selling Harvey Barnes and Victor Christiansen for a combined 25 million, which is pretty good given that we didn't even use them last season. Our first signings were all free transfers. Nicolas Dominguez added competition in midfield, whereas Davinson Sanchez and Mario Hermoso were brought in to be starting centre-backs. Our first fee was 12.75 million on Stade Rennais' Desiree Doué to add another wonder kid to the centre of midfield, before snapping up Moise Kean for a cut price of 3.6 million and Callum Wilson on loan to challenge Daka and Nonso. But I still wasn't entirely happy with my back line, so we signed Jamal Lewis and Pavlovic to add quality and depth to the left-hand side, as well as allowing us to offload Castagne for 20 million to Porto. Luckily for us, we had a kind start to the season playing Southampton, who won the Championship playoffs last season. I tell you what, it feels great to be back in the Premier League as we are building up early on in this game. Scott finds Nonso, one touch, two touch, back of the net. It's beautiful football. And it's only 15 minutes into the game, but Scott's got the ball on the edge of the area again. Fresneda into Doué, into Daka. Daka now gets the goal, starting off from where he finished last season, banging in goals. Despite that win, the Premier League was going to be a difficult challenge as we suffered losses to Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle and Manchester United. But we did start to get some form going, Patson Daka's 90th minute winner away at Arsenal being a real catalyst. Both Daka and Nonso were bagging goals and had 10 each by January. It was wonder kid Desiree Doué who was also bagging goals for us, the 19-year-old seemingly able to score from anywhere on the pitch. I had made an executive decision to drop Dewsbury Hall in favour of our wonder kid midfield, and whilst his numbers last season were insane, it looked like a good choice now as all 3 of them were leading the way for assists. And as a result in our upturn in form, just after the halfway mark of the season, we sat 6th place on the edge of the Champions League positions. If we were going to finish in the top 4, we were going to have to add some defensive stability and stop conceding so many goals. So I signed this guy that I can't pronounce to replace Wilfred Ndidi in the halfback role for 18.5 million. So with the Champions League in sight, we just had to keep winning games, which we did. Moise Kean got a run in the team due to injuries, and it turned out he was world class, scoring a hat-trick against Sheffield United and then 5 in the FA Cup against Charlton. Arsene Zakarian was also adding more goals to his game as he scored some important winners, but the team started to run out of steam. It started with a loss to Leeds in March, but was followed up by losses to Chelsea, Arsenal and Fulham in April. By the last game of the season, we had dropped out of the top 4 and were a point behind Newcastle. All we had to do was beat Liverpool on the final day of the season and hope that Newcastle dropped points. Just win, boys, just win. That's all we need to do. As Zakaria finds Scott. Scott goes to Fresneda. Fresneda in the area, plenty of space, shoots, scores. Come on, that's exactly what we needed. Kanate's free kick goes to Robertson, but he controls it. Nonso's onside because of the free kick, and Keane gets the goal. This is perfect. Zakarian on the ball finds Moise Kean. Moise Kean takes it past the defender, left-footed shot high into the roof of the net. This is it. We've done it, surely. 25 minutes to play in this game, and Liverpool looking to come forward now with Trent, who finds a ball to, and okay, they've got one back, that's fine, we're still 3-1 up. They seem to be on a bit of a counter-attack again though. Oh, Face, what are you, he's not quite got the challenge in properly. No, I'm not having this. Harvey Elliott is in a good position. No. As it stands right now, a draw would still be enough for us to go into 4th place in the table. I still can't believe what just happened there, especially as Arsenal did drop points. But we have qualified for the Europa League, and we have to be looking at winning that. Or maybe we won't. as England and Germany are awarded an extra Champions League spot. And so as we came 5th place, we get that spot. Somehow, despite playing only half the season, Moise Kean ended up as our top scorer just ahead of Gnonto, whereas our midfield three dominated assist and scored their fair share of goals. But I am having a couple of doubts over Caprie and our defensive unit as a whole, as aside from Fresneda, none of them are living up to expectations. Luckily, we had 58 million to work with, which we added to significantly by selling Samari for 33.5 million, Hermoso for 20 million, and a combined 18 for Thomas, Pereira, and El Neni. This really meant we could spend big on our defence. So, say hello to new goalkeeper Marco Carnesci, centre-backs Gaston Avila and Ousmane Diomande, left-back Marc Cucurella, and star right-back for the future, Thomas Lujan. So whilst the first team is now looking insane and our backline depth is superb, the depth further forward is lacking. But we don't have any more money to add to those positions, so we need to make sure we don't get any injuries or that could really ruin our season. That was until a £30 million bid came in for Patson Daka, who's out of contract at the end of the season, so we said yes and replaced him with Thiago Thomas for 16 million and used the difference in price to sign Brazilian centre-mid Andre for 12 million. And not long afterwards, the team had a financial takeover with the club floated on the stock market, which hopefully means more money for the transfer budget next season. The season started well with a win and a draw, but it got really good against Manchester City. We've been in control of this game so far, and that's a superb ball over the top to Gnonto. Come on, we've taken the lead. This has been an unreal start to the season. If we can just keep this up, we might be title contenders this season as Kean gets past Ruben Diaz and gets past him twice to score. Amazing. Cucurella brings the ball in the middle. It's cleared only as far as Moise Kean. Real great tenacity there to win the ball. Finds Scott on the edge of the area. First time effort. It's not that powerful. Catches the keeper out, but it's in. This has been such an incredible performance. I'm so happy with where their team playing right now with Scott's ball to Moise Kean. Rises like a salmon. It's 4-0. Erling Haaland has been absolutely invisible in this game. He's the captain for Man City now as he finds Phil Foden's open. Okay, a consolation goal in the 90th minute, it's okay. But the real test was about to begin as our Champions League campaign started in Istanbul with a 3-2 win thanks to a 93rd minute Gnonto goal. We kept winning games in both the League and Champions League, but by November, we fell out of form. In fact, we only won 2 league matches in November and December. All of that money we'd spent on a new defence for that. The silver lining was that we were still scoring goals. By January 1st, Gnonto had 20 in all competitions and Kean wasn't too far behind with 16. Plus, our centre mids are still creating plenty of chances. But we can't add to the squad this January as we have just £3 million in the bank, with the club sitting in 8th in the league. But we could make decent money if we go far in the Champions League. With 6 out of the 8 games played, we sat in 6th place, which would send us straight through to the round of 16, skipping the playoff rounds. But our final 2 games were against Bayern Munich and Dortmund, which would be incredibly tricky. Frustratingly, we suffered a 3-0 loss away in Munich, pushing us down to 12th in the league phase, where victory over Dortmund might not be enough to get us in the top 8. If we can just win this game against Dortmund, we've got a great chance of progressing into the round of 16, missing out that playoff round, right? As Brandt finds a defender in the middle, Lavia gets to the Bellingham though, into Adeyemi, who's brought down. Feels kind of harsh, but it probably is a penalty. Well, up steps Marius Wolf, and Wolf puts it right down the middle. Round's free kick, looks to Adeyemi at the far post. Oh, it's too easy. 16th place was still good, it just meant we had an extra round to go through. We faced Napoli in the playoff round, and thanks to a huge 6-2 win away from home, all we had to do was win 1-0 at home to progress. Liverpool stood in our way in the round of 16, but Desiree Doué wasn't here to mess around as he scored a brace on our way to a 4-0 victory. This then set up Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals as we looked to get revenge, which was shaping up nicely in the first leg thanks to a hat-trick from Thiago Thomas. 73 minutes gone in this game, we're still winning on aggregate. That's okay, we're still winning on aggregate. And Didi, is caught in possession by Kingsley Coman. There's no one there in his way. To be fair, who's that number 24? Pavlovic should have done better there. So we're drawing on aggregate right now. It's the 90th minute of the game. We just need to see this out, get to extra time and regroup. Oh, wow, face, no. No. So we were dumped out of the Champions League, and with 6 games to go in the Premier League, we had to win games to have a chance of European football next season. Luckily for us, Moise Kean went on a scoring spree as we picked up 10 points from a possible 15, leaving us in 6th place on the final day of the season, where we could finish as high as 3rd or as low as 7th. Obviously, we could only draw the match, but it did move us up 1 place to 5th, where hopefully that will turn into another Champions League place. Interestingly, we finished on 1 more point than last season, scoring 1 less, but conceding 2 more. That is stagnation. I know we had strengthened the team from last season, so maybe it's my tactics that are slightly off, but we've also played a lot more games in the Champions League, and that just might be too much for these players. But we had secured another great finish, so that ticked off our second challenge of re-establishing ourselves in the Premier League. Moise Kean and Wilfred Gnonto finished just behind Haaland in goals scored, with both finishing just shy of 40 in all competitions. And once again, our midfield 3 were returning insane assist numbers, so I have no plans to replace any of them. And I don't really have plans to replace my defence. I believe in the players that we brought in last season, so we just need to add some more quality and depth to ensure we've got a better team for all competitions. Wout Faes and Wilfred Ndidi have 1 year left on their contracts, so heading into the new season it made sense to sell both of them. Dewsbury Hall also has 1 year left on his deal and won't sign a new contract, but he is a homegrown player, of which we have a shortage, so I kept him at the club for an extra season to let him go on a free at the end of this one. It was also time to promote the one good academy player that Leicester seems to have, and that is Sammy Braybrook, who spent last season on loan at Trabzonspor. And now finally, it's time to go on a spending spree. We added quality in our back line in Levi Colwill, as well as depth in attack with Moukoko, who had been shafted at Dortmund and barely played any games. Colwill is a slightly better defensive option than Cucurella, and whilst Moukoko isn't much better than Gnonto, he's still young enough to get better eventually. Then we raided Brazil for 2 new-gen wonder kids. Carlos Miguel will provide backup at centre-back, but I'd be happy to put Kleber in our starting 11. He's only 18 but profiles really well against Arsene Zachariah. After a good season, I was expecting lots of bids coming in for our players. Gaston Lavia had a £57 million bid made by Leeds, but if we gave him a pay rise, he said he'd stay. So that's exactly what we did. Marc Cucurella also had bids, but I told him he was a really influential member of the dressing room and convinced him to stay. We were all set for the first game of the new season when 3 hours before kickoff, Newcastle submitted a £72 million bid for Gnonto. The man was a goal-scoring machine, and at just 22 years old, still has a lot of room to develop. So I said no, because I think the team we've now assembled is superb. I've made Levi Colwill a fullback on defend, so we have more numbers in defence, but I'll still let Fresneda get forwards. I've also changed our mentality to balance to ensure we aren't too committed going forwards. And it seemed to work, because by the end of the transfer window, we were on top of the table, having scored 16 goals and conceded just 1. Plus, our Champions League run looks pretty decent as well this season, and we are targeting a top 8 finish. But despite a great start, things kind of slowed up. We drew with Everton and Arsenal, and then all of a sudden, we lose 5-0 to Manchester United. Wolves beat us 3-1, and it's a penalty that cost us any points at home against Chelsea. By the midway point of the season, we had dropped to 5th place and were way off any hopes of a title. Kean and Gnonto were still scoring, but with just 15 each, they were behind where they were at this point last season. And they were getting more assists than our centre mids, who were perhaps adjusting to having Kleber in the team instead of Zacharian. But in general, we were conceding less goals, and that was vitally important. Our defensive changes were working. As for the Champions League, well, we were cruising. Much like last season, our last home game of the league phase was against Dortmund. But this time, it went a little differently, battering them 6-1. And so we finished in 6th place, going straight through to the round of 16. And that result clearly spurred us on, as Gnonto kept bagging goals as we kept winning games in both the Premier League and Champions League. The round of 16 put us up against Dortmund, and again we comprehensively beat them. Atletico Madrid were up in the quarterfinals, and Moise Kean scored the only goal of the first leg to give us the advantage. It's the home leg this time, so we should be more in control of this game, as Nathan Ake gives the ball to Koke into Memphis Depay. Opens up the scoring 1-1. Fresneda early in the second half finds Alex Scott a ball over the top to Kleber. Now Kleber is superb, loses possession, but Moise Kean, what a finish! gets the goal to take us back in front. Come on, lads, just 10 minutes to hold on here as Atletico work it down their right-hand side of the attack. Ball played along the floor to Jack Grealish. Koke scores. So into extra time we go then, 99 minutes on the clock. Thiago Thomas, the super sub, loses possession to Desiree Doué. Come on, that might just be enough to send us through. This saw us drawn against Manchester City in the semi-finals, a team that we know we can beat, and confidence was high after a 0-0 draw in the first leg. Kimmich on the ball, edge of the area, finds Bella Kotchap a little bit further back. He puts a cross in the middle, cleared by Avia. Only as Alex Scott can't win it though, and Foden gets the wrong side of a defender, and it's an easy goal for him. Colville bringing it forward now as he drives forwards towards the edge of the penalty area, but is forced backwards again under pressure. This time Avia goes forward to Colville, who cuts inside, gets round his man, plays a through ball to Clever. Clever goes into the penalty spot, and Nonto scores! Oh, but I think he might be offside. Oh. Right now, we just need a goal to get ourselves back in this game. Otherwise, we are out of the Champions League in the semi-finals. Avia on the left-hand side of the two centre-backs has got plenty of room to run into and played it out wide to Colville, actually, who goes forward slightly to Clever. Through ball to Moiskin, who plays it over the top to Arsene Zakaria. Ederson makes a great save. Oh. Ruben Colwell with the ball forward along the floor to Arsene Zakaria, who comes quite wide to collect it, plays a nice through ball to Moise Kean. He finds Thiago Thomas, the super sub, back to Moise Kean, edge of the area, shot, comes in, oh, how's that been blocked? We really should have won this game. I can't believe we've not won it. Defeat really put a downer on my squad, as we then lost in the league to City and drew to Spurs and lost to Villa, once again leaving us in 5th place. We had more points and conceded less goals. We may have also scored less, but that doesn't really matter when we've almost cut our goals against in half. This is real progress. Next season, we have to be challenging. The real star of the season was Desiree Doué, who scored 16 and assisted 16. The 21-year-old has really come into his own and is arguably the best player in the team. And not far off is summer signing Clever, who scored 11 and assisted 12 at just 19 years old. But striking was maybe a little bit of an issue. Keane and Nonto dropped their goal-scoring numbers, partly because our system is less attacking, but it also maybe hints at them not being super elite. So heading into the next season, we had to reevaluate the striking options. Nonto was an easy striker as he is the best of our 4 strikers. Keane had developed a lot, but maybe he was at his peak, and perhaps Makoko, who hadn't played much last season, was ready for the step up. Especially as the market was light on top quality strikers who wanted to sign for us. Karim Adeyemi was the best of the bunch, but I wasn't convinced spending £72 million on him would make a big change to the team. The midfield options to improve the team, such as Sandro Tonali and Jude Bellingham, were also way too expensive, and the players who we could afford, like Mohamed Kudus, weren't really any better than we already had. Plus, if we're going to make big changes to the team this season, it's going to take some time to adjust, and it might just ruin any momentum we have. So I did something that maybe got Leicester relegated in real life this season. I didn't sign anyone. I mean, I did try. Victor Osimhen was available for £32 million after being transfer listed by Real Madrid, but his wage demands were just insanely high, so we could never go for him. So with no new transfers, we got the season underway with good wins. But we did lose a game to Manchester United, last season's title winners. This was not an ideal start to our title run if we're losing to them. But we managed to keep our results going, with Wilfred Nonto going on a scoring streak to ensure we kept winning. And it was a good job he was scoring, as Makoko just wasn't. We gave him plenty of chances, but he just couldn't score like Keane. But when we put Keane back in the team, he couldn't score. So we were going to have to look elsewhere when it came to January. By early December, we were sat 3 points behind Man City and needed someone to compete with Erling Haaland. So I triggered the £48.5 million release fee clause of Benjamin Šeško in December in a last-ditch attempt to become a title-winning team. Luckily, he agreed and joined us on January 1st, and boy, did he compete with Erling Haaland. Šeško scored a hat-trick on his debut against Newcastle, a brace against Ipswich in the FA Cup, secured us our first cup final by scoring against West Ham in the League Cup semi-final, and then scored 4 goals as we romped past Fulham. It was an inspired signing. And best of all, Man City completely dropped off a cliff, meaning that by the end of January, we were sat 8 points clear at the top of the league. Before our League Cup final against Chelsea, we have a few Champions League games to navigate, after missing out on the top 8 on goal difference. Luckily, Copenhagen were easy enough to get past, and whilst Liverpool beat us in the second leg, we did enough in the first leg to make the quarter-finals. Plus we kept winning in the league and FA Cup, which meant that somehow we were still on for a quadruple. Right, Chelsea got a free kick. Chelsea free kick early on in this game. Ryan Gravenberch takes it, but into the side netting, not that far away. Ousmane Diomande just keeps it in play on that far side of the pitch, plays a 5-yard pass forward to Scott, who plays one over the top to Wilfred Gnonto. Wilfred Gnonto, it's the 90th minute cross, blocks, header, saved by, is that over the line? Oh. Play continues then with Alex Scott once again driving forward, a ball over the top to Benjamin Šeško. Šeško scores this time, it's the 90th minute, we've won the cup. We've actually won something. You know what, I'm glad we've won at least one trophy in this video, otherwise it would have been me spending a ton of money to get us into 5th place in the Premier League with no trophies. But with 1 trophy down, we had 3 to go. Okay, make it 2 to go. Right, just the 1 to go then. I really jinxed it when I said we could win the quadruple this season. With 6 games to go in the Premier League, we were 10 points clear and on our way to finishing our final challenge of winning the title. But we have some really tough games coming up in order to clinch that title, and we didn't start well with a 1-0 loss to Spurs. But luckily, we picked up 3 points against Liverpool thanks to a Šeško hat-trick. Arsenal then played a game in midweek. If they lost it, we would win the title. And guess what they did? Arsenal lost it, giving us a 13-point lead with just 4 games to play, and we had won the Premier League title, which is almost as good as subscribing to the TomFM channel. I really don't think we would have done it without Benjamin Šeško. He was a real hero in the end. In just 5 seasons, we've rebuilt Leicester from the Championship all the way up to Premier League winners. But could we rebuild Chelsea to be a Champions League winner again? You do not want to miss this video. It's on screen for you right now.